All right, shalom, shalom, shalom. You are live and direct with your Akazaki Yahoo. And I start this broadcast as I would start any broadcast by first of all giving all praises, honor, and great esteem unto the Most High Power, Yahuwah Bahashem, Yahushua Hamashiach, and to the 12 tribes of Israel who are scattered to the four quarters of the earth. I say shalom wa baruchim, that is peace and blessings. And I cannot wait to the day that the Most High brings us back together. And we are once again 12 tribes, one family, one nation under the Most High Power, under one covenant, and back in our own land with a heart of flesh and no more a heart of stone. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
I'm joined this afternoon or this evening by my most esteemed Akinanaya. Shalom, Aki.
Hey, shalom, shalom, Aki. Shalom, shalom, Yasharal. Call Halal Yahweh. Bahashem, Hamashiach Yahweh Shah, Barakatah.
Hallelujah. All praises to the Father. All praises to the Father Yahweh in the name of his Son, Yahweh Shah, the Messiah. Bless you. Hallelujah. So we are back for another video review. Double video for this one, quick and easy, both from Black Journals, links in the description box. What's going on, what China is doing to the continent. So anybody who thought that China would be good for the continent, you about this, you're in for an awakening. So here we go.
Allegations of racial discrimination have again flared up against Chinese nationals working in African countries after a video showing a Chinese man whipping African workers with a stick went viral on the internet. Only just weeks ago, a disturbing footage of African employees being mercilessly assaulted by an Asian man rippled across the globe. The purported video, shared by journalist Dom Lucre, shows the Chinese employer yelling at the African workers and beating them with a whip and kicking them as they cover their heads to avoid any serious injury. This disturbing footage, between the time of its publication being the 2nd of May, 2024 and now, has garnered over 18 million views in a very short span of time. That would mean that this had caused quite a great stir, sparking outrage on social media, promoting a torrent of replies from a whole lot of persons who were aghast and disturbed after watching the cruel treatment of the African employees in question. Most have likened the glaring situation perceived from the footage, plus the cruel act of the Chinese man toward his black subordinates, as that of slavery.
Yo, what the hell? I mean, that is outlandish. That is completely crazy. I didn't even know we was getting into this. I mean, that. Whew,
you know what comes to my mind now?
What? Wait a
WWMD. So you remember WW
JD?
WWMD. What would Moshe do?
Oh, Khan. Khan Moshe. I thought you used the M was for Massa.
Nah, what would Moshe do? It'd be a dead heathen.
Yeah, Khan, absolutely. No doubt. Yeah, no doubt. That's necessary because this is crazy. That is absolutely crazy. I don't even know who these fellas are. If these are authentic Africans like from Ham, or if these are our people. It's a possibility that these could be our people, for sure. We don't know for certain. They had the video distorted, and then when it's not distorted, it's still not really clear. But man, that is crazy that he would just haul off like that. And let's continue.
Many, in fact, are being reminded of the Atlantic slave trade saga by the inciting video. Viewers, however, are being triggered to discuss how it appears the Chinese are far more racist than the Americans.
Everyone rails against America while completely ignoring the human rights abuses going on all over the world.
Slavery still exists. The West makes a massive fuss about slavery that happened 200 years ago in America. They don't talk about the slavery taking place all over the world right now.
America isn't the only country that has racism. What's scarier to think about is that we have Chinese nationalists crossing our border. They could be just like this guy.
I keep telling people they haven't seen what racism is until they go to Eastern Europe or Asia. The USA is so tame in comparison.
Every race has owned slaves, and every race has evil people among them. It's time for all the good people who make up the majority in each race to stand together against those in all races who are evil.
The internet was set aflame by this horrendous outbreak. This is not the first time such incidents have been reported or even made headlines. As China runs numerous infrastructure projects in African regions, the assault and abuse of local employees by the Chinese project managers is highly prevalent, global news agency ANI reported last year. Local workers in Africa are being abused and forcefully made to work under dire conditions, given wages that are way below contract pay. Gabriel Noronha, former advisor on Iran, had informed us via his social media handler on X that this disturbing video of a Chinese boss whipping his African workers got posted in a Chinese language Telegram channel, and the outcome was indeed depressing. On seeing the video, many of the Telegram users had laughed and discussed how Africans and Indians have inferior brains and deserve to be treated like slaves. This information was even more disturbing. According to the news agency ANI, there have been multiple instances of ill treatment of African workers by Chinese project managers. Last year, a Tanzanian woman named Lucy Paulo, who worked as a cook in Standard Gauge Railway, SGR, in the Mwanza region, suffered serious injuries after being assaulted by a Chinese national named Zheng Yuanfen. The Chinese national was arrested and detained at the railway police station initially. He was later moved to Misungwi District Police Station. In 2022, a China-run gold mining company in Zimbabwe was accused of ill-treating workers. The workers were not given decent meals or accommodation while on duty. They were also not given protective gear, exposing them to hazardous chemicals in the factory. Rwanda, in that same year 2022, charged a Chinese businessman, Xu Shungun, with torture and sentenced him to 20 years in prison after he was filmed beating a local worker whom he had tied to a pole. Xu Shunjun was seen yelling at the Rwandan national and whipping him with a lash while other men in orange jackets watched. This breakout angered a lot of Africans in the know. Following the outcome, the Chinese embassy in the Rwandan capital of Kigali warned its citizens in Rwanda to abide by local laws. In 2021, a year before the incident, a Kenyan worker was awarded more than $25,000 by a court after his Chinese employer severely beat him. The Kenyan court found that the man had suffered extreme abuse. This is not limited to African workers only. Earlier this year, South Korea's intelligence agency and researchers reported that at least 3,000 North Korean workers staged protests last month due to exploitative working conditions that have led to incidents and accidents. Large-scale protests by North Koreans are virtually unheard of as China exercises near complete control over the citizens with harsh penalties for dissent. But we shall not go into all that in this video. However, the said footage has sparked a fuming debate around racism and slavery among the netizens, with many of the users expressing their anguish over the vile behavior of the Chinese towards Africans. China is not unique in having a problem with racism. It is a worldwide scourge, and nowhere, it seems, is immune. In every society, there are those who act and believe in highly racist ways, and those who do not at all. China, like most places, is full of both types. What makes the issue different in China is how easy it is to encounter racist behavior and beliefs. It can be strongly argued that this is not because the Chinese as a people are any more or less racist than any other nationality. Quite simply, racist sentiment may seem prevalent simply because it is so blatantly and matter-of-factly expressed when and where it does exist. Foreigners who have spent any length of time in China will have their own stories of racial profiling and discrimination, from very commonly heard comments on the size and shape of facial features to more aggressive forms of discrimination founded on negative stereotypes associated with one's race. And where racism is found in China, there can be little argument that no group is more racially targeted and maligned than persons of sub-Saharan African descent. To understand the anti-blackness in Asian American communities, We need to begin by looking at the historical role played by white supremacy in its creation. One of the earliest cases of pitting Asian Americans against African Americans was during the post-Civil War era, when Southern plantation owners replaced former slaves with Chinese laborers in an attempt to create competition. Plantation owners argued that the Chinese laborers were docile, submissive, and hardworking, unlike African Americans. Moon Ho Jung, associate professor of history at the University of Washington, explains that this hardly reflected the reality of what was happening, but nevertheless, the rhetoric was pushed at the expense of two minority groups and for the benefit of exploitative white plantation owners. However, while America has made significant strides in dismantling legal segregation and promoting racial equality, the scars of its past and the persistence of systemic biases continue to cast a long shadow, but one could say that it's a work in progress. On the other hand, although China and other Asian countries also face their own challenges with racial bias and discrimination, there is obviously not the least effort endeavored towards equality. Scholars have suggested that the People's Republic of China largely portrays racism as a Western phenomenon, which has led to a lack of acknowledgement of racism in its own society. You know what that means, don't you? So, when Chinese workers at a McDonald's in Guangzhou a few years ago held up a sign saying, in English, "Black people are not allowed to enter the restaurant," and they appeared to be completely unembarrassed about the whole thing, that shouldn't surprise you. It is some culture, a norm to spite blacks without thinking it an offensive thing to do. There is the video documentation of the all-out assault on Africans living in Guangzhou, and stories of Chinese police rounding up Africans, forcing them out of their homes and hotels, and putting them out on the street in a backlash against those thought most likely to be carriers and transmitters of the coronavirus. Local authorities were unconcerned with potential accusations of racism, and concern only came at a national level once embassies, leaders, and citizens from dozens of African countries began vociferously protesting China's treatment of their citizens. Many Africans have had their own experiences with racism in China. Anecdotes abound. An elevator in the five-star Kempinski Hotel in Beijing, full of guests including a tall black man, stops on a floor on its way down to the lobby. The doors open, and a Chinese woman waiting to get on takes one look at the African man, opens her mouth in shock, and shoos the lift to carry on without her. The African could only laugh. A program connecting Chinese high school students to American faith-based schools and the families that will host them draws hundreds of potential applicants. A majority of applicants request that their child not be sent to live with a black family. Their applications are denied because placing their student with a non-black family would have seemed to have granted their request. A group of ministry-level Chinese officials meets with senior diplomats from an East African country, discussing an infrastructure project that the Chinese side wants to secure the rights to build. Forgetting that the African translator at the table could understand him perfectly, one of the Chinese officials turns to his Chinese colleague and uses an obscenely racist slur in reference to the African diplomat. The interpreter had translated this, but the African diplomat did not flinch nor feel any form of inferiority. Instead of just getting up and walking out, the man had looked his Chinese counterpart straight in the eyes and said, "Tell him I return the compliment, and now let's get down to business." The UN Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination reported in 2018 that Chinese law does not define racial discrimination and lacks an anti-racial discrimination law in line with the Paris Principles. There are a wealth of papers, articles, books, and commentary tracing Chinese racism from the 1960s to the 1990s. Discrimination against African students has occurred since the arrival of Africans to Chinese universities in the 1960s. In one of the most notable incidents, in late 1988, Chinese students in Nanjing assaulted foreign, mainly African students. The incident had sparked a wave of coverage in foreign media with lots of headlines to go with. One of the earliest works in post-1949 China to document Chinese racism toward Africans was Emmanuel Heavy's An African Student in China, published in London in 1963. In it, Heavy documents his experience of the arrests of Chinese girls for their friendships with Africans, and particularly Chinese feelings of racial superiority over black Africans. In 2007, police anti-drug crackdowns in Beijing's Sanlitun district were reported to target people from Africa as suspected criminals, though police officials denied targeting any specific racial or ethnic group. According to Foreign Policy, African students have reportedly been subjected to more frequent drug testing than students from other regions. Accordingly, some Chinese vloggers have attempted to change the negative stereotypes in their country regarding Africa, while black expats residing in China have reported a mixture of positive and negative experiences. Reports of racism against Africans in China grew during the COVID-19 pandemic in mainland China. In August 2023, Human Rights Watch reported that racist content against black people is widespread on the internet in China. Human Rights Watch found that racist content targeting black people is becoming increasingly prevalent on China's social media platforms, where it is being used to attract traffic and generate profit. Not long ago, there was the news of one Lu Kei who was sentenced and deported from Malawi for recruiting black children for racial exploitation. Lu Kei was known to record hundreds of videos every day which he would sell to a Chinese website for up to $70 each. The children in the films were paid around $50 each only. Lu Kei would make the children chant racist slogans about themselves in Chinese, a language they did not understand. By doing so with the phrases taught, they praised Chinese people, made fun of black poverty, and chanted racist epithets saying, "I am a black monster with a low IQ." This is the product Lu Kei sold on the internet before he was apprehended by the law, and his fellow Chinese were more than delighted to have been patronizing him all along. Why this madness is so organically irrepressible, one can't seem to start to understand. The rights group reviewed hundreds of videos and posts from 2021 on platforms including Weibo, a short messaging app, and Douyin, the Chinese TikTok, and said it found that content often portrayed black people through offensive racial stereotypes. Such material was also found on the video sharing platform Bilibili, livestream and video app Kuaishou, and social media and e-commerce site Xiaohongshu, it said, noting that the companies had failed to deal with it. The amount and extremity of racist content on the Chinese internet suggests that the platforms either are not meeting their own standards banning racist content, or that their policies are inadequate when addressing racist content, both contrary to their human rights responsibilities, the report said. Human Rights Watch noted that influencer videos depicting black Africans as primitive or dependent on Chinese people as their saviors were particularly widely shared, while black people who married Chinese were accused in online posts of contaminating and threatening the Chinese race. Chinese in relationships with black people, meanwhile, were accused of being traitors. The Chinese government likes to tout China-Africa anti-colonial solidarity and unity, but at the same time ignores pervasive hate speech against black people on the Chinese internet. Yaqiu Wang, senior China researcher at Human Rights Watch, said in a statement, Beijing should recognize that undertaking investments in Africa and embracing China-Africa friendship won't undo harm caused by unaddressed racism. Many who have watched China's unprecedented commercial and investment entry into Africa have wondered when the long history of Chinese racism toward Africans would again overshadow Beijing's preferred narrative. The COVID-19 pandemic has proved the perfect setting for the resurgence of this ugly phenomenon. Racism against Africans had as well very much played out during the pandemic, when some were forced out of their apartments and singled out for quarantine, prompting rare criticism from African leaders. The COVID outbreak in China only not long ago brought about the devastation of a vast population of blacks. Lewis was at the hospital where he interned when he saw videos on social media of a black man being chased in the street by the police. When the 23-year-old medical student from Sierra Leone checked his phone, he had missed calls and messages from friends in the southern Chinese city of Guangzhou who had also seen the video, and there was a notice online in Chinese saying that Africans were importing the virus and needed to be quarantined. Local authorities would come to the hospital where Lewis, who asked that his name be changed for fear of reprisals.
Wait just a minute. I specifically remember seeing videos of people of Asian descent eating bats on camera. I remember seeing that. And yet, somehow, some way, it's the black people that did it when the virus had the least effect on the continent, period.
Right.
Of the whole earth, the virus had the least effect on the continent. But that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous how they can just change the narrative and make it into something that is not. And it's your fault. Like, what kind of foolishness is that? That's crazy. That's crazy.
Gone.
Completely crazy. Let's get back to it here.
Worked and told him he needed to quarantine too. They showed him a government notice that said if he had returned to China that day, had been in contact with anyone infected with the virus, or had COVID-19 symptoms, he would have to undergo quarantine, Lewis had told Al Jazeera. He had not been to Wuhan, believed to be the origin of the new coronavirus which causes COVID-19, and had not left Guangzhou since the outbreak had started months before. In fact, he had spent most of his time in the hospital or in his room, a 5-minute walk away. Lewis, who has been in China for 4 years and speaks the language, argued back and forth with the officials for nearly 2 hours. He was part of the medical staff and had been working in a hospital with Chinese doctors since the outbreak began, he told them. He would agree to be tested for the virus, but if he was going to be put under quarantine, his Chinese colleagues would have to go with him. When officials continued to insist, Lewis had refused, asking,
"Is it just because I'm African? Then I won't be quarantined."
Being singled out for quarantine is an experience shared by other African residents of Guangzhou who have been subject to COVID-19 tests and quarantine based on their race. The fallout was swift. Photos circulated on social media showing signs on an apartment building banning black people from entry, and a video of a sign in a local McDonald's doing the same. Africans were evicted from their apartments, and some were forced to sleep on the streets. The response prompted a rare outcry from African leaders who demanded answers from Beijing about the treatment of their citizens in Guangzhou. China's Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian responded by saying China treats all foreign nationals equally and that the Chinese government has zero tolerance for racism. But these were in words alone. Guangzhou's containment policies highlight underlying social friction between Africans and Chinese that is not usually addressed. Guangzhou is home to the largest population of Africans in China and is one of the biggest travel hubs in the country for traders and African businessmen. However, a lack of communication between local leadership and migrant communities, as well as unresolved visa issues for African nationals, have created the conditions for conflict. Policies to stamp out the virus do little to eradicate animosity and xenophobia towards Africans that became evident in the social media response to events in Guangzhou. People reacted to a report of a Nigerian man attacking a Chinese nurse with calls for Africans to be deported, and described relationships between black people and Chinese as impure. Weibo, a Chinese social media platform, suspended 180 accounts for inciting discrimination. When health policies that are supposed to protect residents exacerbate racial differences, it hurts, Lewis said. He has had patients at the hospital ask for Chinese doctors to treat them instead of him, and he chooses to spend time in places that appear more friendly to foreigners. And reconciliation efforts between governments will have done little when people feel on such a personal level that bridges have been burned. "I will never come back to China when I'm through with my studies, never," Lewis has said. Some African residents said they had been the target of everyday racism and xenophobia long before the COVID pandemic, with state media and adverts deploying blackface and racial caricatures. Human Rights Watch noted most Chinese social media platforms have community standards and guidelines that ban content promoting racial or ethnic hatred and discrimination. It said Bilibili, Kuaishou, Weibo and Xiaohongshu did not respond to its letters questioning the racist content, and urged the platforms, which quickly remove content critical of the government, to take down videos and posts that violate community standards on hate speech or might incite racial discrimination or violence. ByteDance, Douyin's owner, removed one video after it was flagged by Human Rights Watch, but took no action against a number of others concerning a black child, stating that the depiction was not necessarily associated with any certain group or race. Douyin added that it had a combination of people and technology to enforce content moderation guidelines, and that it on average takes to action on more than 300 videos and comments per day that include violative content targeting black people. Human Rights Watch said Chinese in interracial relationships with black people were often the target of online abuse, with women being threatened with rape, death and doxing, publishing personally identifiable information without the individual's consent. It noted the prevalence of posts calling on the government to ban black people from becoming permanent residents in China or from marrying Chinese people. Some also adopted racist symbols and language frequently used in the United States in their online posts, while some called for them to be killed. Chinese who condemned the racism or provided support to victims of racism were also targeted, it added. Noting that Beijing maintains one of the world's most sophisticated internet censorship regimes through the so-called Great Firewall, it urged the government to do more to tackle the problem and take steps to promote tolerance and fight prejudice. Major Chinese social media platforms are failing to fulfill their own guidelines to address pervasive racist content, Wang said. Chinese authorities should stop facilitating this toxic environment. In closing, Nicholas Trang, a geek working at an IT automation company in China, shares his story with us.
Like everywhere in the world, I was born in France of Asian descent. I was called a thief in a shop once because I put my hand in my pocket, and the owner thought I stole something. I was called by many names in the streets of southern France just because of my color. It was in the 90s. I was young. Now I live in Shanghai. When I arrived in the year 2003, I would walk with my friends, and Chinese people would talk to me like I was their translator or boy. At a restaurant, they will be polite with them and rude with me. When I learned Chinese in Beijing, I made friends with a black guy from Benin, bilingual in French and Chinese. On this certain day, he nicely came with me to buy a bike. The sales guy kept answering to me when all the words came out of my friend's mouth. He wouldn't accept or couldn't accept that a black guy could talk Chinese, and a Chinese guy could not. Most of my friends are married to Chinese wives. It's common to hear insults from Chinese men. Usually, the girls receive the worst insults: whore, materialistic bitch, and all the worst kind of words you can imagine. A friend of mine got beaten up in the subway by 4 jealous Chinese guys, just because he was with his beautiful Chinese girlfriend, and they couldn't bear it. Once, I had read this story in the China Daily, who related an article from a local press. In Guangzhou, a car accident happened, and one black guy came to the rescue of the people still stuck inside the car. He pulled them out before the car took fire, and he left just like that. We are looking for this black guy because we want to decorate him, to show our community that black guys can be nice people. I think this was in 2010. I'm married now to a Chinese wife who doesn't speak English. When we go to Hong Kong now and we speak Chinese, anywhere we go we don't feel welcome, either at the restaurant, the hotel, or any social place one can hang out. So my wife asked me to only speak in French and English, and boy, how nice they are to us. This happens in Taiwan, it happens in Japan, it happens in France, in Italy, in Spain, in the US. Racism has no nationality.
And this brings us to the end of yet another interesting video segment. And if you have learned something, kindly support our work by hitting that like button before you. Share with your friends and families to keep spreading our eye-opening black narrative.
So this is what's happening on the continent. And apparently racism is alive and well all over the events. So yeah, if you're looking for it, if you think you're gonna jump on a bus or a plane and escape racism, or aka the curses, nah, ain't gonna happen. So let's continue with the second video here, real quick and easy. This is another directly from Black Journals. This is expose what China now do in African villages. So this is what Chinese now do in African villages. So like, here we go.
I'm a little curious here. Tell me, when you hear the term racism for sale, what first comes to your mind? When I saw this on a news headline, I couldn't help imagining how it is that racism has become some commodity for sale where consumers are obviously targeted. Funny, isn't it? But it's real.
Yes, You heard that correctly. The kids are saying, in Chinese, I'm a black monster. My IQ is low. This video was released in February 2020 on a Chinese social media account called, get this, Jokes About Black People Club.
Did you see and hear that? Without further ado, let's delve into the occasion of the story. In February 2020, a shocking video began to circulate on Chinese social media, where a group of African children are being instructed by a voice off camera to chant phrases in Chinese. The kids repeat the words with smiles and enthusiasm, but they don't understand that what they're being told to say is, I am a black monster and my IQ is low.
In February 2020, a shocking video surfaced in China. Off camera, someone is giving African children sentences to repeat. It was posted on a Chinese social media account called, get this, Jokes About Black People Club. Some people were laughing. Others were outraged. The word the kids are using is Heigui, which could be translated as black monster or black devil, but really, it's the Chinese equivalent of the N-word. When the online controversy died down, I couldn't move on. As a black person living in China at the time, the video was stuck in my head. Where was it shot? Why was it made? Who was it who took a bunch of happy, excited kids and made them chant something so demeaning?
The clip ignited outrage in China and beyond, but no one ever answered some crucial questions. Why was this filmed? Where was it shot? Who made it? These questions, however, send BBC Africa Eye reporters Runako Salina and Henry Mango on a journey into a Chinese video-making industry that exploits vulnerable children across the continent. You would be surprised what they found.
In China, it's become a thing to send personalized greeting videos on social media and messaging apps. Happy birthday. Congrats on your wedding. These videos typically sell for anything between $10 and $70. For some weird reason, videos featuring Africans have become especially popular. Lots of them show young kids standing around a blackboard, shouting greetings in Chinese. The content can be innocent enough, but some of them are, well, the low IQ video is the worst example we've seen, but it's part of a huge industry.
What Runako Salina and Henry Mango had uncovered in their investigation was overwhelming. It was a whole Chinese industry, in the dedicated expertise of exploiting ignorant African children across the globe. Here's one thing about China from observers. Chinese people love watching how other places are not as good as China. Obviously, this plays the hormonal role of some good elation in them and satisfies them so much psychologically that this dominant behavior had given rise to a whole multi-million-dollar Chinese industry, where content creators had to make profit off this behavior by racially exploiting the African continent. Crazy. All manner of illogical things have happened in the name of hatred and disregard for the black skin. However, these BBC Africa Eye reporters, Runako Salina and Henry Mango, did carry out a brilliant and strategic investigation concerning this insane booming industry, with their specific aim being to figure out where the video on the low IQ was done.
Our first challenge was to figure out where this was filmed. By scanning hundreds of similar videos for clues, we managed to pin the low IQ video to a country, Malawi, and even to a village, Njewa, just outside the capital, Lilongwe. Armed with this information, Malawian journalist Henry Mahango set off for the village. Sure enough, he found a Chinese man making videos with kids. The locals called him Susu. He was paying the kids about $50 a day to perform, including on days when they were supposed to be in school. While Henry was investigating on the ground, I was still following the clues online. We found 2 social media accounts that were regularly posting videos from the same village featuring the same man. On one of them, we found a photo of an ID card indicating that the man's real name was Lu Ke. Shushu, which means uncle in Chinese, was just a nickname that Lu Ke used with the kids.
Uncle and Susu.
These reporters, while scanning hundreds of videos of the same nature, were able to pin the video on low IQ to Malawi in Africa, and had even begun going into specific villages in Malawi to look for whoever was behind the incendiary racist publications. They had found a Chinese man eventually in one of these villages, in Jawa to be precise, making videos with little African children. They were also able to discover from the internet that the name which the Chinese man was called by the locals wasn't his real name. His real name was Lu Ke.
So is this guy Susu the one who made the low IQ video? In an effort to find out more about Susu, Henry and I set off for another village, Kamwendo, where he'd spent several years making videos with local kids. I was keen to speak to the family of one young boy in particular. He was a prolific performer in Susu's videos, known across Chinese social media as Xiao Gula. He was a cute kid, such a natural performer that he became a poster boy for the industry. Even now, you can see him giving the thumbs up in adverts for Chinese blessing videos. It didn't take long to find Xiao Gula and his mum. The boy's real name is Bright. He's now 6.
The reporters had interviewed Bright and his guardians, but the report received wasn't good.
Can you tell us anything about Shushu? I was upset by Susu's treatment of Bright, but not surprised. Again and again, he'd used these kids as props for his own ego, as poverty porn, as commodities that could be made to sing and dance for profit. We'd learned a lot about Susu and how he worked. Now, it was time to find out if he'd made the low IQ video.
From the investigation, it was discovered that Lu Ke was recording hundreds of videos every day and selling them to a Chinese website for up to $70 each. The children in the films were paid around $50 each. The sole aim was to explore and exploit, no pity.
Posing as a businessman wanting to commission some video ads, Paul got Susu talking about the industry.
你不要对他嘻嘻哈哈，就是说怎么很好的朋友，到最后千万不要可怜他们，你要记住这个东西，千万不要可怜他们，不管是他们家里怎样了，不要可怜他们，这是最主要，你把这句话放在心里，对待黑人，行了。
In another meeting, Paul showed him the low IQ video and asked if he made it.
有这个，这是我的，这个是你的。
He said this was mine.
这个是你的。哦，错，这个不是我的。
Hold on.
跟我一块的那个朋友拍的，回去了。
It looks as though he'd let a secret slip.
这个我建议你删掉，因为你现在在。他是群，朋友圈里面有。我知道，我建议你手机不要留这个东西，不要给黑人看到这个东西。
He knows it was a controversial thing.
But one thing was for sure, the culprit has been found. Lu Ke was the man behind the IQ video. Lu Ke would teach the children phrases in Mandarin in which they praised Chinese people, made fun of poverty and chanted racist epithets saying they are a black monster and that their IQ is low.
It was time to speak to Susu ourselves.
哎，你好，你好。当地的小孩子们都叫你叔叔是吗？
是的，是的。
那你在这里拍这些视频的原因是什么呢？他们说你曾经给打过小孩子们，
打过小孩子，
用你的手，对，
我没有，
没有是吗？
对，这是一个误会。
让这些小孩子们说我是黑鬼至上帝，这是你拍的吗？
这不是我拍的，那真的不是我拍的，我没有剥削他们。
So it just feels like this isn't productive anymore. He's not going to admit anything else.
In the end, Selena and Henry had successfully disrupted Liu Kei's operation in Malawi. The Malawian government had gotten wind of this. Amid public outrage, Liu Kei illegally fled to neighboring Zambia. However, he was extradited quickly and formally charged with multiple offenses in Malawi. A Malawian court found Liu Kei guilty of his charges, including child trafficking and procurement of children for use of entertainment. He was sentenced to 12 months in prison and ordered to leave the country afterward. And just hold on a second, amazing viewers. If you've gotten up to this point in this video, then it would mean that you've actually settled in and are having an interesting viewing already. Don't forget to kindly support our works if you are yet to, by hitting that like button in front of you. Share video with your friends and families to keep spreading our eye-opening black narrative, and kindly subscribe to stay put for more interesting contents in the way. We are delighted to have you always with us. Please let us proceed. The brilliant job of these reporters, however, had merely disrupted only one operation, run by one man, Liu Kei. But the fact remains that there are still so many of them out there. This industry is huge and still growing, with real black kids like Bright being exploited every day for the entertainment of people far, far away. On the afternoon of May 24th, a beauty pageant took place at an apartment in Kitwe, Zambia. The contestants, numbered from 1 to 7, took turns walking in front of the camera to loud music from a hit Chinese matchmaking show. "Are you single?" a young Chinese man asked the Zambian women before telling them to repeat backlines to the camera he recited in Chinese. "Hello everyone, I'm 19, the first woman said after him. "I'm single, my eyes are small." Halfway around the world, this was primetime entertainment in China. Tens of thousands of viewers were watching live on the Chinese video app Kuaishou and offering their takes. "All good, except too black," one person commented while the seventh woman was instructed to sing a song. "Number 5 has straight legs," another viewer remarked. The host, 28-year-old Cheng Wei, who accumulated close to 10 million followers across different Chinese social platforms under the handle African Mr. Hello, offered his own opinions after introducing the women. "This is not China but Africa," Cheng said. "Africans are inherently savage, barbaric, you know. They only have profits in their eyes." Cheng is one of many Chinese influencers overseas who made a fortune, promoting a sense of economic, cultural, and political superiority among Chinese fans by exploiting racist ideology, experts told Rest of World. In dozens of videos filmed and uploaded by these influencers, black people, including children, are shown to embrace Chinese language and culture. Black women are degraded as sexual objects, participating in beauty pageant shows and calling Chinese vloggers Laogong, or hubby. The influencers portray themselves as wealthy saviors who provide locals with money, jobs, clothes, healthcare, housing, and food. The Chinese always want to show Africans that they are a different type of partner from what Africa had with the colonists. Rest of World analyzed more than 24 popular accounts based in Guinea, Tanzania, Zambia, Mozambique, and Kenya, as well as other countries in Africa, South Asia, and Southeast Asia, and found that the vloggers, with follow accounts that reach into the millions, together make up a multi-million-dollar e-commerce industry. Part of China's live streaming e-commerce boom, experts say, was built on top of hours of racist and misogynistic content. During that particular 4.5-hour live stream, Cheng sold about $22,000 worth of t-shirts, facial wipes, and watches, according to tracking service Bihukankan. Although the vloggers often claim to be helping out in Africa, experts say their work essentially monetizes racial inequality. Chinese tend to think of themselves as targets of racism. They do not think about themselves as doers of racism, that they are also practicing racism to other people. But they are, said Sheng Zhu, a researcher at the University of Michigan, who specializes in Chinese digital media. If you look at the representations in those videos, they are trying to establish the kind of contrast between them as modern subjects and Africans, as somewhat inferior, somewhat pre-modern subjects that are backward. In June, a viral BBC investigation exposed a Chinese videomaker in Malawi named Liu Kei, who was accused of physically abusing at least one black child. After the video prompted a global outcry, the Chinese government vowed to crack down on online racism. The country's all-encompassing censorship apparatus often turns a blind eye to xenophobia, which the state does not view as an imminent threat to its rule, according to researchers. Soon after the BBC documentary was released, social media platforms, such as Kuaishou, Xiaohongshui, WeChat, and Douyin, China's version of TikTok, blocked users from searching video accounts containing the term Africa. Almost all the top Chinese influencers in Africa stopped their daily live streams. Chung told us that Kuaishou had told him the live stream ban on Africa-based vloggers was triggered by the BBC investigation. Kuaishou, Xiaohongshu, and Bilibili did not respond to requests for comments. ByteDance declined to comment on the crackdown. Tencent, owner of WeChat, also declined to comment on the ban and referred Rest of World to the app's policy against hate speech. Only when racism from the Chinese internet triggers backlash in Africa, a key economic and diplomatic partner, does Beijing feel the need to act, said Emmanuel Matambo, research director at the University of Johannesburg's Center for Africa-China Studies. The Chinese government only responds when there's outrage, Matambo told Rest of World. The Chinese always want to show Africans that they are a different type of partner from what Africa had with the colonists. But in Zambia, Matambo said, some Chinese entrepreneurs' patronizing way of treating local people and lack of understanding of their culture has caused problems. Zambian workers have long complained about labor abuse at Chinese firms, such as being told not to join unions or allegations of being detained at factory sites during COVID-19 outbreaks. One of the hundreds of thousands of Chinese migrants who moved to Africa to seek economic opportunities, Cheng went to work at an air filter factory in 2015 in Zambia, hoping to escape the fierce competition for jobs at home and find a fast track to success. Hailing from a rural part of Henan province, an economic backwater in inland China, Cheng dropped out of secondary school after his first year. Months into his arrival in Zambia, in early 2016, before TikTok was launched, Cheng started posting short videos of Africans on Kuaishou, then the dominant short video app in China. He called the account African Mr. Hello, because hello was the only English word he knew when he went to Zambia. In an interview with Rest of World in June, Cheng told us that he first made money from the virtual tips sent by his fans in China. After work, he would walk around the village where he lived filming local people, food and markets. He would film children chanting Chinese poems and lining up to collect snacks he bought for them. He made a series of videos as he delivered food to an impoverished elderly man, and another video where he showed himself helping to build a wooden hut for him. Runako Tolina, producer of the BBC's Racism for Sale, the documentary that led to public outcry across the African continent, said such content reinforces the discrimination against Africans in China. This industry is situated in these wider narratives around Africanness, of poverty, of neediness that allows for saviorism to play out, she told Rest of World. Selena, who also founded digital platform Black Liberty China to document Black people's experiences in China, added that it feels a very human zoo in nature. After 3 years in Zambia, Chung became a full-time vlogger. He hired local women to act in his videos and live streams, showing them telling jokes in Chinese and cooking Chinese dishes in giant pots. Chung noted to Rest of World that images of charity and Chinese culture being adopted abroad were particularly popular, pointing to positive comments from fans. As his fan base in China expanded, Chung went from behind the scenes to being a central character in front of the camera himself, wearing sunglasses and Dior shirts, an image of a wealthy, powerful, and fashionable Chinese man who generously helps local Africans and is widely revered. Until the recent crackdown, Chinese video apps rewarded populist, racist content with viewers and profits. Video sites such as Bilibili and ByteDance's Xigua pay content creators according to the traffic and advertising revenues they generate. Other video apps, such as Douyin and Kuaishou, match vloggers with advertisers and share revenue from product placement. In the afternoons, Chung peddled cosmetics, snacks, and homewares, just like hundreds of thousands of other Chinese live streamers. The products often don't have any ties to Africa or the content. It's simply one way to stand out in China's crowded live stream shopping industry. According to Bihu Kankan, Africa-based live streamers that we examined together sold more than $7 million worth of products in May and June, with the tech companies taking 0.6% to 10% of the income. Viewers also send virtual tips, and about 50% goes to the platforms. Chung, the most successful of all, raked in more than $5.6 million in revenue over the last 3 months, according to Bihu Kankan. Chung said that on average, he earned some 20% of the revenue as commission. He claims that his African staff, including a 20-year-old who served as the camera woman, were paid above the local salary level. Western companies have cashed in as well. In Guinea, Wang Fei runs a YouTube channel with 25,000 subscribers, regularly featuring a boy he adopted from a neighbor's family on his channel. The child, whom he nicknamed Little Monkey, speaks fluent Chinese, cooks Chinese food, and attends classes at a China-funded Confucius Institute. The videos have been watched 110 million times and are estimated to have earned him about $229,000, according to the YouTube money calculator on Influencer Marketing Hub. YouTube did not respond to a request for comment. In a June video, Wang Yao, a Kenya-based influencer with 5.4 million followers on Douyin, who often appears flanked by female assistants labeled as Miss World winners representing different African countries, spoke to his audience about the abundance of mosquitoes in Africa before promoting a Bayer mosquito spray. After Rest of World asked Bayer about the product placement in July, Bayer said it had asked a distributor to remove the advert, adding that it's committed to a culture of inclusion and diversity. In China, racially charged nationalism has been on the rise over the past few decades, as the Communist Party mobilizes people's pride toward belonging to a homogeneous Chinese nation, and frames itself as leading its rejuvenation against Western hegemony. Kun Huang, a Cornell University researcher who specializes in race and blackness in Chinese culture, says images of Chinese men wielding power in Africa plays up to a desire to see their own nation, instead of Western countries, projecting influence over others. When asked about the beauty pageant in May, the vlogger said he had paid the contestants and offered them a nice meal in exchange for their appearances. The winner of the show, Chung said, had joined his staff as a cook who occasionally performed in the videos. Chung told Rest of World he believed his business was saving Africans from poverty. "I changed their fate," he said of his local employees. "I gave them new lives. They also made me successful. It's reciprocal." Despite the crackdown, Chung's pages are still live, as of publication. Influencers have removed the word Africa from their usernames generally, and they are still able to post new videos. Chung's account, African Mr. Hello, changed to Mr. Hello Overseas. His new videos from Zambia still attract tens of thousands of likes. In the comments section, fans have asked when his live streams will return. "Chinese people love watching how other places are not as good as China," Chung told Rest of World, arguing that he had portrayed Africa in a truthful way. "If you film some advanced stuff here, people might not like watching. They would rather see lives that are worse than their own." In closing, we've peeled back the layers of racism for sale, exposing the insidious ways prejudice can be embedded in systems and marketed as normalcy. It's a bitter truth, but acknowledging it is the first step towards dismantling it. Racism relies on stereotypes. Let's challenge assumptions, celebrate diversity, and educate ourselves and others about the true value of every person. Remember, the price of inaction is far too high. It's the pain of denied opportunities, the fear of targeted violence, the erosion of a just society. Racism for sale preys on division, but we can choose unity. Let's invest in building bridges, not walls. Support organizations fighting discrimination. Educate ourselves and others about the history and ongoing impact of racism. Engage in open dialogue, fostering understanding and empathy. That brings us to the end of yet another interesting.
Man, that was some hard to watch stuff, simply put. And I don't even know where to begin. First of all, I'm perturbed that the guy only got 12 months. That's sickening. You know what I'm saying? You know, converse these children into this into demeaning themselves in your language, and you get found out, and it's only worth 12 months. Like, they come into the continent and do this type of behavior, and they get 12 months. Like, that says a lot. That says a lot about the government there and how they value themselves. You know, think about this. If this would have happened in Israel during the time of King David, what do you think would have been the penalty? I'll just let you think about it, because I can guarantee you it wouldn't have been no 10 months, no 12 months. It wouldn't have been that. He'd have been lucky to, I don't know. We'll see. Well, that's crazy. Anyway, I knew it was going to be bad. I didn't know it was going to be this bad. but it's bad. It's real bad, and they are doing everything they can to cause harm, and man, that's really all I can say about it. I mean, it's a horrible situation, and yeah, they need some resolve over there. So,
Con.
yeah, go ahead.
You know, very upsetting to watch. You know, I place it along the same lines as the racism and bigotry that, you know, we and our people have faced here in America, America with 3 Ks. You know, we and you know, you were asking well, you didn't ask about the small children, but you were asking earlier if the brothers being beat were Israel, and you know, I'm not sure about those brothers because I'm not exactly sure where that was at. But so Malawi, it's on the east coast of South Africa, like southeast, like Africa. That's where it's at. And it indeed is inhabited, you know, for the most part by Bantu people. You know, the Bantu people came from the north and went south, and you know, they continued going south, but you know, not before setting up different communities there in Malawi. So I would say that these are Israelites, and we shouldn't be surprised by that. You know what I mean? Because we share so many the curses. We share the curses.
Yeah.
You know, as our people were here fighting for civil rights, there in West Africa in the 60s, they were fighting to repel colonialism. You know, so we have so many different parallels. You know, these Asians have set up in our communities. With clothing stores, with gas stations, and you know, it's almost cliche the way that we're treated by them in their stores. You look at the nail stores, the hair stores; these are all run by the Asians, and we go into those stores and they follow you around like you're stealing something. You know. I don't know if I would go as far as to say that they're more racist than the racism that we've seen here, but you know, definitely racist. Some racist people. I don't want to say that they're more, but I know that, you know, I've been accused of stealing in white stores. Been accused of been watched closely in Asian stores. So you know, it's similar to me. I remember back when I was in high school. There was a famous girl that was out in California that had got into an argument with one of these Asians, one of these Koreans, and the Korean lady shoots a teenage black girl in the head, man. Wow. Tupac covered it quite a bit, and you know, there were definitely protests, and she wasn't alone. Like they had a habit of pulling guns out on and for the most part, it would always be young so-called African-American youth, you know, that they would do that to. Here locally, I'm glad to say that they on 28th Street, 28th, where we used to set up, you and I had set up street teaching over by the laundromat maybe 2 years ago, right?
Yeah. Kind of.
A few doors down from there, there was a Chinese restaurant that was shut down by the community because the store owner pulled a BB gun and put it to so-called African American's head, child's head. The community found out about it, and those Chinese people had to get the hell out of there.
No more business here.
Yeah, kind of like bricks thrown through the doors. You know, they were vandalized. I wouldn't be surprised if they're back open now, but you know, they were shut down for a time. You know, this bigotry goes back a long way, and it's crazy because they set up in our communities. They're setting up in so-called West Africa. Liberia has different stadiums, soccer stadiums that have been built by the Chinese. So they are making investments there. They are impregnating our women there and it's only one reason that they would be doing that, and it's to lay claim to the land and the resources there. And unfortunately, we don't have the leaders that have the integrity to throw them out. To these cats want money, and they've got plenty of that. You know.
All right.
But I digress.
I say bounce them out on their head. You know, they come in acting crazy. As quick as they come and act, get them up out of there. You know.
I don't know if you remember, but back when COVID was going on, like around that same time, there were a bunch of videos of the way that they were treating the Nigerians there in China, throwing them out of their homes, putting them on the streets, deporting them out of the country, and it had backlash. For a moment, West Africans there in Akebulan had began doing the Chinese the same way. It's like, okay, no, we're shutting your business down. And it was a direct result of how we were being treated over there. You know, I don't condone violence, but you know, you've had some massage parlors shot up in Atlanta. And you know, this again, I would say directly revolves around you know, how our people have been treated. So you know, we don't have any friends. All we got is us, man, and it's damn sure time for us to realize that, you know.
That's a wonderful sentiment, and that's exactly right. That's exactly right. We can't put our trust in anybody but the power of our people, the power of our fathers, as our power as well as each other. And we ought to be able to lean and depend and trust one another in that manner. Unfortunately, we can't because all too often, you know, the evidence shows that we've been, you know, sold out for the most minute of payment. But nevertheless, you know, we got to keep our minds and our hearts in the right place and look to get the resolution that we need. All these nations need to get up out of the continent. You know, the continent should be hands off for any outsider. Anything that's there, if you want any part of it, you buying it from us. That's what it should be.
I honestly, y'all knows that this is what I wholeheartedly believe. I believe that the Abba has given that to us. I think that was a refuge for us, fleeing Israel. We ran into there, and you look at a map and you look at a Akebulan as a total continent. All the way around it, it's deserts everywhere except for where the Israelites are.
Right.
And I believe that's the love of the Abba. Not because we're a great people, but just because of the commitment or the Abba remembering what he had told his friend Abraham. I'm gonna keep your people up. I'm a deal with them. You know what I mean? I'm gonna judge them.
Right.
But that's what it all. That's the only way it could be. Yeah,
I agree with you wholeheartedly, Aki, and I'm thankful to the Father for that. And I just wish want our people to get the mind right and understand that we can't do anything without the power of Israel. We have nothing else to rely on. There's nobody else we can call on. Superman ain't coming. You know, none of that stuff is, none of the fairy tales are going to come to fruition. What's going to come to fruition is going to be the restoration of the people of the Most High, and that is the nation of Israel. That's what we can depend on. So with that, we'll go ahead and close it out. Book of Ecclesiastes, chapter number 12 and verse number 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. This is why this is so very important, because these things that we saw in these videos, this is why these things are so important, because we are to, in the conclusion of the whole matter, we are to fear the Most High and keep his commandments, because this is the whole duty of man. This is why we are here. This is why all these things have taken place. This is why we're scattered. This is why we have no power, no authority. We have no real rulership, and we have, I hate to say, no freaking backbone. You know, these continents, the continent on the continent should be set up with countries. Any country that has majority Bantu people need to have Bantu rulership, need to have Igbo rulership, need to have our people in charge with backbone, the man who got the spirit of Dawid in charge, ready to stand for his people and defend them fully with his commitment to the Most High. And if that is not happening, then this is the result. This is what we get as a result. Salaki, I kind of went on the sidebar. Book of Ecclesiastes, chapter number 12 and verse number 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear the Most High and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. At the end of the day, when it is all said and done, all the dust is settled and all the smoke is cleared, we will be judged on whether we have feared the Most High and kept his commandments, because this is the entire reason that we are here. I am Ya'akazaki Yahu, joined by my most esteemed Ak Akinanaya, giving all praises, honor, and great esteem unto the Most High Power, Yahuwah Bahashem, Yahushua Hamashiach, and to the 12 tribes of Israel, all 12 of them who are scattered to the 4 quarters of the earth. I say, Shalom wa Baruchim, that is peace and blessings. And I cannot wait to the day that the Most High brings us back together, and we are once again 12 tribes, one family, one nation, under the Most High Power, under one covenant, and back in our own land with a heart of flesh and no more a heart of stone. Until that day, shalom, family.
Shalom, shalom, Mr. Paka.
Praises to the